Oh yeah, that is really loud. Okay, I'll talk just briefly and then I'll do the demo because I think most people, that's what they really want to see. I got into this about 10 years ago. I was taking wood carving from Fern Weber and I had this idea in my head and it needed wood burning. So she recommended going to Sheila Hunter and learning. And so a friend of mine, Jeannie was there at the show. If you were at the show, she was like 2 down from me, between my just past my daughter. So I learned how to wood burn from Sheila. I took one lesson, and this is what I came out with. She was using coloring book, so you could get your patterns and work from there. And then I put it that next year in the first time I had competed in the show for the Kansas City Wood Carvers Club. And I got first in animals and beat Sheila, which was kind of like, wow, I beat my teacher. But I never did finish that concept that I had. I have it partially carved and sitting up in a closet for the past 10 years, or well, 8. So, but I was very hooked with wood burning because to me it is like drawing. And actually pyrography, which is the correct term for wood burning, means writing with fire. So I just kind of started out with patterns from other people, like Sue Walters, Laura Irish. There's several other people that do books, and I forgot, sorry, to bring the books so you guys could see them. And I took that and learned how to do the techniques. Other people's patterns, I don't have to worry about composition. I just trace it down and do it. But I have been doing art for a long time. I paint in acrylic, pastel, watercolor, and so I said, well, I could do this. I can make my own patterns and things. So I went out with a camera at various places and took resources. This is a drive-by resource. I was in Iowa, and I didn't even get the whole thing. I'm driving by and kind of, probably not the safest thing to do, but that's what I did. And from there, I created, this is not how you normally do it, but I actually did a sketch of it and actually got the parts that weren't actually in there, just made them up. And then I made a pattern from my sketch. And I've actually had 2 people in some of my classes actually try my patterns, which it's nice. None of my patterns are easy. So, and so I'm in the process. I figured I should burn my own pattern on this. So I've started this one. It's not very far along. I'm just starting to put in the shadows and just kind of get the feel of where everything's going to be. I will make adjustments as I go. I never burn exactly what's there, so I edit. Even if I'm tracing down my own pattern, I edit, and so it'll become free-handed places. And then as I'm burning, I'll go, oh, this would be a good idea, and start burning it. This is one where I actually did color. Like Barney said, you can do it watercolor, and the burn itself will stop. Watercolor, it should stop stain. It's not a problem with acrylic unless you have it watered down quite a bit. Although, be careful when you put a finish on because it could actually melt it and carry it on. I had that happen on one box. But this was watercolor pencil that I put in. And one of the things that about this is that it will fade. Even with the best finishes that you put on, you have to keep an eye on it. You don't want it in direct sunlight. Wood in sunlight fades. So it's just doing what it's supposed to do. And the burn, which is just burned wood, fades. So I would guarantee my pieces, if they do fade, I will touch them up for people. And this was just kind of a Zentangle. It really lends itself to Zentangle. But I tried something different. I actually have put stain on top of this. I want to see how long it lasts with a little bit of stain in it. It's an experiment. This one down at the bottom here from Martha Lafitte, I've already, even though I have some really good finish on there, I can tell it's starting to fade in some areas, so I may touch this up before I put glass. I get museum glass now to put on here, so you can still see the piece, and not that stuff that says UV protectant that you stick on top of a photo because it fades, it kind of makes everything blurry. And since this is a piece of art, and not a picture of my daughter, I don't want this one blurry. So I will get museum glass, which is expensive, And it has its own issues, like if somebody puts their little fingerprints on it, you probably will never get them off. So I always have signs saying, don't touch. Right now, people can touch it, and I had people coming up and going, I wax them, because we have acid in our hands, and that's going to ruin finishes. So I put wax on, and then also I can buff it up, and it gives a little bit of shine. Obviously, I like doing trees. No, I don't really like doing trees, but I make myself do them because I wanted to learn to do trees really well. This one is my most recent finished piece. It got 20 out of 20 at the wood show, but I didn't get anything for it. Because I was competing, it was for the grand champion, and I was competing against carvers, and they will tend toward the carver. And so I accept that, but it's nice to know that the people that were the judges saw this for what it was and for the amount of work. And I also have another piece that I didn't bring. It's big. It's got the museum glass on it. It's 2 foot by 1 foot. It took me a couple of years to do it, mainly because I set it aside for a couple of times, and then came back to it. And it's a very beautiful piece, and it's taken best of show in the carving a couple of years ago. So this is the kind of stuff that I like to work with.
A nice three-dimensional look to it.
Barb, how many different tips do you use to create?
Okay, usually just about 2, maybe 3. But as you can see, I've got lots of tips. I've never met a tip I did not like. It's like my brushes. I have 1,000 brushes because you just never know when you're going to need that one. So I have some that have never been used, but I have a plan for them. Like I have my fish scales, and I want to do a dragon. So I'm going to use the fish scales to do the dragon scales. So I have that. This particular burner that I use, it's not these, although that background on that Zentangle piece, I burned with this. So you can get a nice heavy, and it has a bigger tip, so I can actually get more burned. But it's a steady, one single temperature. This is a nibs burner. They're getting hard to find. And then this one happens to be a dual, and you can't turn them on both at the same time, so you can't just immediately switch. However, I have a switch here that lets me go back and forth. And so I can have 2 pins, and I don't have to take the time to take the pin on and off and change it out. I can have 2 going. Ones that I tend to use a lot, this one's called a pinpoint. It's literally like a safety pin. And it burns nice little dots. I use it for stippling. And then shaders, and I have several different kinds of shaders. This is one of my newer ones. That's why it's still shiny. It hasn't gotten all carbony. And it's for doing, you can do with backgrounds. I do a lot of trees with it because I can use the edge. I can use it flat. I can basically shade. That's why they call it the shader. This is a different type of shader, and I know it's hard for some people to see this. It's more like of a square and a point, and it's good for getting into corners. They have one that's called a ball. They come in 3 different sizes. You can do stippling with it too. You can write with it. You just have to remember that it is burning the second you set it on the wood. So if you aren't moving when you're putting it down, you got a dot burned into the wood. So if you're going for that, it's great. This one is actually by razor tip, and I cannot use it directly on this one. I have to actually use an adapter cord because this is a female. These ones here that this one uses are males, so I have to use an adapter. But this one is a very fine skew, and it's called a rounded skew, so its heel is rounded, and it allows you to do curves. You can't do that with the ones that are just straight. You end up hooking the heel into it and making it a strip.
Hold it still so the camera can see.
Oh, can't see it?
Down just a little bit. Okay, I'll go up.
Got it? I know, it's tiny. So you can always come up afterwards and take a look at these. This is one that I won at the show because we always need more. It's when I've had people when I teach that have theirs go out on them. So I like having an extra one that they can use other than the $15 Walmart version. And this is Colwood, and a lot of my tips are Colwood. They can be used interchangeably. This one I haven't used very much yet. It and I have been having some arguments. So I have gotten a thicker gauge cord for it because the cord that it comes with is like probably an 18, and I just can't pull enough in there to use a shader and get any kind of a burn. So this one is, I believe, a 16. So I'll be playing with this. This is also by Colwood. This is actually my daughter's. It was her first one. She wanted to learn how to do it, and so I got her this because it was like $50, $60, and it wasn't 100 and something, $150, $200, and she's very good at it.